At 7 on a quiet Tuesday, Dex Monroe woke to the sharp cry of metal being torn free. It was a sound that flipped his stomach before his brain could catch up. He ran outside barefoot, gravel cutting into his heels, half-dressed and disoriented. On his roof, 3 workers in safety vests were levering his new solar panels off with crowbars, methodical and unhurried beneath the morning light. "Sir, step back or we call the cops," one shouted without looking down. The man wasn't joking. Dex froze, staring at $40,000 worth of shattered panels, his 2 years of savings being ripped apart under morning sunlight. "Who sent you?" he asked. The worker pointed to his lawn. There stood Bryn Keller, the HOA president, in yoga pants and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Clipboard in hand, blonde bob motionless even in the breeze. "Violation notice," she said, handing him a paper like she was delivering mail. "I have county permits," Dex shot back, breathless. "Don't care. HOA overrides county." Behind them, the inverter sparked, coughed smoke, and died with a final hiss. The smell of burnt circuits filled the air like burning money. Bryn turned to leave, satisfied. She had no idea who she'd just declared war on. Because Dex Monroe wasn't just a homeowner. He'd spent 12 years in Iraq as a Navy electrical engineer, rewiring power grids under mortar fire, places where one bad connection could kill dozens. You learn patience in war. You learn control. And most of all, you learn that whoever owns the power owns the fight. That morning, Dex started planning exactly how to cut the lights on 87 houses. Hers included. Dex was 52, divorced and trying to rebuild quietly. After his service, he'd done consulting for private energy firms until his marriage disintegrated under the weight of long nights and longer silences. The divorce had been clean but left scars you couldn't see, one of them being the guilt of splitting custody with his 17-year-old daughter, Skylar. Skylar wanted to study environmental science at CU Boulder. Smart, idealistic, and just naive enough to believe the world could still be fixed. She was the reason Dex went solar, to teach her that doing right sometimes means doing it yourself. He'd bought a modest house in Pine Haven Estates, a beige suburb outside Denver where every house looked cloned from the same construction kit. Trimmed lawns, manicured hedges, matching mailboxes. Dex's place stood out, a smaller, older ranch with chipped paint and a sagging fence. But it had one thing the others didn't, a south-facing roof that caught 10 hours of sunlight a day. Perfect for a Tesla solar array and Powerwall setup. For 18 months, Dex saved, canceled vacations, took on extra projects. Every dollar went toward those panels. When they finally went live in April, his electric meter ran backward. The system was perfect, self-sustaining, efficient, silent, a small rebellion against dependence. By June, he was producing more energy than he used. He was winning, until Bryn Keller decided otherwise. Bryn was 48, a real estate agent married to Troy Keller, a city councilman who introduced himself at block parties as Councilman Keller, like it was part of his birth certificate. She'd been HOA president for 3 years, winning elections by apathy. Nobody else ever ran. She cared about property values, which really meant she cared about control. And she hated anything that didn't fit her picture-perfect vision of suburban order. Dex's house, his truck, his quiet independence, it all clashed with her aesthetic. What Dex didn't know then was that Troy Keller sat on the city's energy committee, collecting an $8,000 consulting fee from the local utility company, Rocky Mountain Power. Solar panels meant less grid use. Less grid use meant less profit. The math was simple. The motives, uglier. That morning, standing on bloodied heels and broken pride, Dex watched Bryn's hired crew destroy what he'd built. She cited HOA Rule Section 14.3, claiming no exterior modifications without board approval. He pointed out his permits. She smiled like it was a game she'd already won. "Remove them within 30 days, she said sweetly, "or it's $500 a day in fines." She walked back to her spotless white Lexus, license plate reading Sold, and drove off, leaving Dex standing in the ruins of his dream. He didn't shout, didn't beg. Combat zones teach you patience. He simply stared at the smoking wreckage and thought, she just turned off the wrong man's power. When Skylar came home that afternoon, she saw the damage before he could explain. The driveway glittered with broken glass. The panels she'd helped him install, gone. Her college essay had been about this project, about how her dad believed in clean energy and change. She cried, and Dex's heart broke in silence. He promised her one thing: we're not backing down. The next day, a letter came, county zoning complaint, claiming his solar setup violated building codes. The signature read, "Concerned neighbor." The return address? Bryn's real estate office. She didn't even bother hiding it. At the county office, the inspector, Doug, laughed when he pulled up Dex's file. "Your permits are spotless. Someone's wasting our time." But procedure was procedure. A re-inspection in 3 weeks. 3 weeks of rumors and Bryn whispering to neighbors that his unsafe panels endangered everyone's homes. By the time Dex got home, another notice was taped to his door: cease and desist from Bryn's brother-in-law, lawyer Clayton Voss, threatening lawsuits if the panels weren't removed in 2 weeks. Dex took a photo and posted it to the Pine Haven Facebook group with one caption: "This is what HOA leadership looks like." Within an hour, comments flooded in. Some mocked him. Others messaged privately. Greta, a neighbor 3 streets over: "She fined me $800 for painting a little free library for kids the wrong shade of teal." Harlan: "She tried charging me $200 for an EV charger until I showed her state law. She never forgave me." Then Felix messaged, "Got ring cam footage. Bryn directing the workers on your roof. Want the file?" Dex stared at the screen. The light above his table buzzed faintly, a sound he'd heard in war zones before a blackout. Only this time, he wasn't powerless. That night, he pulled the HOA bylaws from the website and read every line. By page 30, his eyes locked on a section Bryn had conveniently ignored. Section 14.3c. Energy efficiency improvements, including solar installations, are exempt from prior approval if they meet county standards. The rule had been added 2 years before Bryn took office. She'd broken her own bylaws to destroy his property. Dex smiled for the first time in days. The war had just changed sides. Dex Monroe had spent a career studying power, how it flowed, where it broke, and what happened when the wrong people controlled it. That night, staring at the clause that proved Bryn Keller had violated her own bylaws, he didn't feel anger anymore. He felt focus. Every circuit needed a plan. Every plan needed patience. And Dex had both, in abundance. The next morning, he called a paralegal named Marion Chase, a woman recommended by a veteran buddy who described her as a chainsaw with a law degree. Her office was wedged between a nail salon and a pawn shop, the air thick with the scent of burnt coffee and determination. She listened to his story without interrupting once, only raising an eyebrow when he mentioned Bryn's illegal demolition of county-approved property. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair, laced her fingers, and said, "She's bluffing and she's sloppy." Then she printed 87 letters, one for every household in Pine Haven. Each contained the rule Bryn had ignored, the evidence of her harassment, and a single question in bold: "Did you know your HOA president doesn't follow the rules she enforces?" Dex spent the night slipping each envelope into mailboxes like a soldier laying charges before a demolition. The next evening, as the sun dipped behind the identical rooftops, a knock rattled Dex's gate. Standing there was Councilman Troy Keller, Bryn's husband, dressed down for once in jeans and a polo. The air smelled faintly of cedar cologne and panic. "You need to stop this," he said, lowering his voice. "Code enforcement can make life very difficult for homeowners with older properties." Dex recognized the tone immediately. It was the voice of someone used to getting their way through fear. He reached into his pocket and casually tapped his phone, already recording. "Say that part about code enforcement again?" Troy's face lost color like someone had pulled his plug. He turned without another word and left, tires squealing on the street. Dex saved the file 3 times and labeled it insurance. In Iraq, the rule had been simple: never go to war without backup. 2 days later, a notice appeared on Dex's door. An emergency HOA meeting. The agenda blunt. Vote to authorize legal action against 428 Ridgewood Lane. His house. Dex arrived early to a room that smelled of old carpet and bad decisions. Bryn sat at the head table flanked by two loyal board members, Luther, a retired dentist desperate for relevance, and Joss, a stay-at-home mom whose nervous glances betrayed regret. Bryn opened the meeting with the kind of authority dictators dream of. "We're addressing a serious violation threatening property values," she declared, clicking through a PowerPoint that looked like a high school project. Photos of Dex's roof zoomed in like crime scene evidence, and the bylaw citation she used conveniently left out subsection C, the very clause that proved he was right. When she called for the vote, Luther's hand shot up immediately. Joss hesitated, whispered, "I abstain." Bryn smiled like a viper. Motion carries. Dex didn't argue. He just watched, memorizing every word, every smirk. That night he called Marion again. "How many signatures do we need to recall her?" he asked. 65 homeowners, she said. "But she won't give you the member list." Dex's reply was calm. "Then we'll find another way." The next week, Bryn weaponized the HOA fines like bullets. Rust on mailbox, $150. Grass a quarter-inch too tall, $200. Holiday lights still in storage, $100. Trash bin visible from the curb, $175. Total, $625. Dex documented everything: photos, timestamps, comparisons. 9 other houses had rusty mailboxes. Half had visible bins. Selective enforcement. Perfect evidence for harassment. Every fine she sent became another nail in her own coffin. While Bryn played queen of petty tyranny, Dex went digging. Late nights at the kitchen table, laptop glowing over half-drunk coffee, he combed through public records until he found the weak wire in her perfect system. Troy Keller's financial disclosures were public, and there it was, black and white. Rocky Mountain Power Consulting Services, $8,000 annually. The same utility company Bryn's war conveniently protected from solar competition. He drafted a Medium article titled, "When Power Becomes Profit: How One HOA President Protects Her Husband's Utility Check." But he didn't publish it yet. Timing mattered. Always save the best voltage for the right circuit. Then Marion called again. "You'll love this," she said. "She just spent $15,000 of HOA funds on lawyers without a member vote. That drops their reserve below the legal minimum." Dex smiled. "That means personal liability, right?" "Exactly. If the HOA fails its fiduciary duty, board members can be sued personally. House, car, everything." Bryn was digging her own grave, and she didn't even realize the shovel was her own signature. Harlan, one of the neighbors Bryn had fined before, showed up with a laptop and a six-pack. Together, he and Dex combed through 3 years of HOA meeting minutes. What they found was uglier than either expected. Bryn had been paying herself $500 a month under a consulting contract with her own company, Keller and Associates. No votes, no bids. Just theft disguised as paperwork. They kept reading. A landscaping deal worth $3,200 went to a company owned by her brother-in-law, the same lawyer who'd threatened Dex. Another $1,800 spent on Property IQ Pro, a premium real estate analytics tool that had nothing to do with HOA business. Total, $28,000 siphoned from homeowners' dues. Dex leaned back, the kitchen light flickering above him like a slow fuse. "She's been robbing everyone blind," he said. Harlan nodded grimly. "We've got her, man." Dex shook his head. "Not yet. When we move, it has to be airtight. She'll play the victim the second she feels the heat." Then came the message. Unknown number. "Back off, or your daughter's college applications might get interesting." Dex froze, his jaw tightening as he stared at the glowing words. He forwarded it to police, filed a harassment report, and saved screenshots to every backup drive he owned. That was the thing about bullies, they always pushed too far. By Monday morning, Bryn filed the lawsuit. HOA versus Dex Monroe, demanding $25,000 in damages and the forced removal of his panels. 12 pages of fiction, stamped and sealed. An hour later, she posted on the community forum, "Forced to take legal action to protect your property values. Some homeowners refuse to follow rules." Comments flooded in, some supportive, others skeptical. The neighborhood was starting to fracture. Then she made her boldest move yet, a special assessment of $400 per household to fund her lawsuit. Dex couldn't attend the midday vote. Most working people couldn't. Only 19 out of 87 homes voted, and the motion passed. Just like that, Bryn had raised $34,000 to fund her vendetta. The yellow envelopes arrived that evening, stamped urgent, legal defense fund. But this time the tide shifted. People started calling Dex, Greta, Harlan, Felix. Neighbors who'd once stayed quiet now wanted in. Someone finally said what everyone was thinking. "If she's stealing from us, we want her gone." And just like that, the current reversed. That night, as Dex sat in his dark kitchen surrounded by printed evidence and the low hum of the refrigerator, he realized something important. Bryn thought she understood control because she ran a neighborhood. But Dex had spent his life running grids, networks, and systems that powered entire bases. He didn't just understand control, he engineered it. The war was no longer about solar panels. It was about power, and who deserved to have it. Saturday morning dawned bright and calm, the kind of peaceful day that hides the storm coming behind it. Dex Monroe stood on his porch with a mug of black coffee, watching sunlight glint off the panels that had started it all. In 3 hours, the HOA was holding a town hall to decide his fate. What Bryn Keller didn't know was that the power she'd abused for years was about to fail her, literally and figuratively. At 9 a.m., Rocky Mountain power inspectors arrived at the old transformer near the playground. Dex had filed a safety complaint days earlier, pointing out the blocked access Bryn's landscapers had caused. For 90 minutes, the engineers measured, scribbled, and shook their heads. Then they zip-tied a red notice to the fence. Equipment condemned, unsafe for operation. Power for the entire neighborhood would be shut off at 2 p.m. for emergency replacement. The same time the meeting began. Dex didn't smile. He just exhaled slowly. Timing like that couldn't be planned. It was karma running on schedule. He texted his allies. "Power goes down at 2. Meeting stays on. Bring flashlights." Marion replied with one word. "Perfect." Greta sent a gif of fireworks. The stage was set. By 1:30, the community pavilion was packed. Neighbors clutching papers, reporters adjusting cameras, the air buzzing with whispered anger and curiosity. Bryn walked in wearing her usual armor, pressed blazer, perfect hair, and an expression carved from arrogance. Her new lawyer followed, expensive and already sweating. She looked confident until, at exactly 2 p.m., every light in Pine Haven Estates flickered and died. The crowd gasped. Silence blanketed the room except for the hum of Dex's portable generator, the only sound in the dead neighborhood. Outside, houses stood dark and lifeless. All but one. 3 streets over, Dex's home glowed bright, solar-powered, alive, untouchable. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Even Bryn's lawyer stopped pretending not to notice. Dex stepped to the microphone. "Thanks for coming," he began, voice steady through the speaker. "Let's talk about where your money went." Heron switched slides on the projector, showing bank statements, violation letters, and evidence of $28,000 stolen from HOA funds. Murmurs grew into shouts. Then came the video, Luther's tearful confession that Bryn had paid herself through fake contracts. The crowd erupted like a breaker blowing. Bryn shot to her feet, screaming over the noise. "You think you can destroy me? You're nothing, a broke divorcee in a shack dragging this neighborhood down." The words echoed like a death sentence. The camera filming for Channel 9 caught every syllable. When Dex finally spoke, his voice was quiet but lethal. "No, Mrs. Keller, I didn't destroy anything. I just turned on the lights." Applause thundered through the pavilion, raw and relentless. People stood, hands raised, shouting for her resignation. Greta called for a recall vote right then and there. Dozens of hands shot up, far more than half. Bryn's lawyer whispered something urgent, but she was already breaking, her voice trembling. Fine, I resign. The moment hung in the air like an exhale the neighborhood had waited years to release. Outside, the dead streets shimmered under the afternoon sun while Dex's house gleamed, lit, alive, and free. Marion took the mic to start collecting names for a class action. The people were finally taking back what was theirs. Dex stepped away, eyes on his glowing home. After months of chaos, threats, and corruption, the current had shifted for good. In a neighborhood built on control and conformity, one man had proved that knowledge is power. And power, when used right, can light up the darkest places.